time is 6 to 8 minutes. Anne wrote this speech among many writings that she is giving to her children, telling them some of her life experiences to share with them and future generations. The speech is about her younger years, her family, and how she witnessed discrimination among colored people. Anne wasn't in agreement with what she saw, and over the years still feels badly about one incident in particular in Alabama, where she knew this colored gentleman misunderstood her actions and thought she was trying to force him off the walkway. Since Anne wanted me to give her speech in her absence, I thought this was a good speech to give in celebration of Martin Luther King's birthday. Culture Shock by Anne Hach. Having grown up in a small town of about 1,200 people in southwestern Minnesota and being the seventh of 8 children, I did not have to do much and life was simple. My oldest brother, 13 years older than I, joined the Navy when he was 16. This was during the Depression and the war clouds were forming in Europe. There were 3 older girls, Helen 7 years older, Sheila 8 years older, and Eileen 10 years older. In 1948, when I had begun my sophomore year in high school, my dad got a job at a military base in Mobile, Alabama. The 3 girls, as my parents referred to them, were all adults and working in Chicago. In 1948, Helen, the youngest of 3, got married in August of that year. After closing the house, which had been built by my dad's dad, probably with the help of neighbors, we went to Alabama by way of Chicago for the wedding. Our dog, a black retriever, one of many who followed my youngest brother Francis home, was sent by train. Shortly after we settled in, the dog dug a hole under the fence and ran away, never to be seen again. All of the furniture was left in the house. I don't know why, unless my mother thought we weren't going to be there long. As we drove through the countryside, none of it left an impression until we got to the deep south, and I saw colored people picking cotton by hand. Then there were the shacks that they apparently lived in. I did not see any doors and thought they may have been opened all the way. My recollection is that it appeared that there was no glass in the windows. There were no colored kids in school. I did not see them in the stores. So one day, having been there a few months, I asked one of the girls I hung around with, how do these people shop? Where do they go to school? What about the theaters? Oh, she said, they have everything they need in their neighborhoods. Somehow I didn't believe that, but said nothing. I assume my friend really did believe that. Life there was very different. One day, while at the friend's house, sitting at the dining table, a rather large, funny-looking bug strolled across the table. I screamed, and my friend laughed. That's just a cockroach. When we ate watermelon, we would go outside in the backyard, break the watermelon open, and take a piece. Then we would see how far we could spit the seeds. Probably not everyone did that. All of the water fountains in the stores were in pairs and had a sign on them. One said white and the other said colored. Of course, they were not allowed to go to the lunch counter and order anything, but they must have shopped there because the signs on the fountain suggested they did. I don't remember the restrooms having signs. Getting on public transportation, which I used a lot, the colored had to walk to the back of the bus. Behind the back door, there was a white line. They had to go across that and stay there until they got off the bus via the back door. Buses then were hot. Seldom was the front portion filled, but they dared not go there and sit down. It seemed rather cruel to me in such a hot climate. When we walked down the street, the colored person was expected to walk on the outside of the walkway. One day when I was walking down the business district sidewalk, right down the middle, a black man was walking toward me near the building. He got over, and I decided I was not going to make him walk on the outside. So I moved over towards the curb. He moved over further. I moved over again as we approached each other, and he actually stepped off the curb into the street. I felt so bad, but could not even speak to him. So we both went our way, probably both of us feeling terrible. That incident bothered me for many years and still does. In 1950, my dad had a heart attack and died. Mother decided we would go to northern Illinois, where her married sister and her family lived. They had a large rooming house that was about 30 miles north of Chicago, so we would be close family. A few years later, as I remember correctly, I was still in high school and was working at Western Union as a teletype operator. And every evening, on our break, we would go across the street to a restaurant for a banana split. One evening I went in, and there was only one gentleman at the counter, a colored man. The waitress came over to wait on me, and I said, "That's okay, you can wait on him first," because it was obvious that he hadn't been waited on, no glass of water in front of him. She said, "That's okay, I'll take your order." When I left, she had still not waited on him. In retrospect, it was seen that this was before the sit-ins were publicized. I worked in Western Union about 1956. Possibly this man was just on his own, trying to get something to eat. Many years after that, 60 Minutes had a program on the subject of discrimination. They interviewed a very kindly, immaculately dressed, elderly African-American gentleman. All I remember is that his grandmother had been a slave, and in the interview, he had told how she had been treated. At the end of the interview, he said, "I would never treat another human being like that." He then turned his back to the camera and walked away. This was a very dramatic exit, and it reminded me of the times I witnessed how colors were treated and how badly I felt about it. What Anne experienced was definitely a culture shock to her in her early years in Minnesota, and then her move to Alabama, and then to Illinois. To recap on Anne's story, her recollection of the event started in 1948 when there was a lot of racial segregation and tension among blacks and whites in our country. Anne frequently used the term colored because that was the term African Americans were referred to at that time. Anne wanted to share with us her memory of some of the discrimination she witnessed during that time and wanted to share her perspective with us. I hope you were able to reflect back to that era and put yourself in Anne's shoes for just a few minutes. I chose Anne's speech in commemoration of MLK Day because it is a reminder of how things used to be and how wonderful it is now that things have changed. Thank you, Dr. Martin Luther King, for helping our country with disparity of segregation to move forward.